picture this. It's the middle of the night. The office is dark. The servers are, quietly humming in the rack, and you are fast asleep at home.
The absolute worst time for something to go wrong.
Right? But in that quiet, someone else is wide awake. An attacker just silently logs into your network, and they don't break down a digital door or trigger any massive alarms.
No, they just slide right in.
Exactly, they just slide in. And over the next few hours, they alter your administrative settings. They methodically download your most sensitive client files, so financials, personal data, proprietary blueprints, and then they systematically delete their own tracks.
Just completely scrub the evidence.
Yeah, they just vanish into the digital ether. And when the sun comes up and the dust finally settles, you and your entire team are just standing there staring at glowing monitors, asking each other one terrifyingly simple question: what happened?
Yeah, that moment of panic, that is the ultimate nightmare scenario for any business, regardless of size.
Oh, absolutely.
Because in that specific moment, if you do not have the right historical data safely stored away, you aren't actually conducting an investigation. You're just guessing.
You're totally blind.
Exactly. You are staring at a crime scene where the room has just been completely scrubbed clean with bleach.
Wow. Yeah, and that brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We're exploring our source material on CIS Critical Control 8, which is Audit Log Management.
A crucial topic.
It really is. We are going to uncover the absolute necessity, the art, really, of keeping your digital receipts. Because without them, like you said, you're flying completely blind when things go wrong. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We hear constantly about firewalls, we hear about complex passwords, and we are practically beaten over the head with, multi-factor authentication. But audit logs seem to be the unsung heroes of the entire security ecosystem. They don't get the marketing budgets.
They really don't. And it represents this massive critical oversight in how organizations protect themselves. Because, most companies spend an enormous amount of time, energy, and money building these massive walls. They want to prevent attacks at the perimeter, which, is totally understandable.
Get the bad guys out.
Exactly. But in their obsession with keeping people out, they completely neglect their internal surveillance. They build this impenetrable fortress, but they don't bother to put a single camera in the interior hallways.
Oh, wow. That's a great way to put it.
And this raises an important question, like, why do so many businesses only realize they have a massive cybersecurity blind spot after the damage is already done and the data is already gone?
I think it's just because, no one wants to think about the worst case scenario until it's sitting right in front of them, right? Like demanding a ransom.
Human nature.
Exactly. Now, the source text brings up a brilliant analogy to help visualize this, comparing audit logs to security camera footage for your technology. Every piece of hardware and software you use tells a story.
It really does.
But I have to push back a little on how businesses actually handle this in the real world. If logs are like security cameras, isn't the real problem that most businesses buy the expensive camera, mount it up on the wall so everyone can see it, but they never actually hit the record button? Or, to use an older metaphor, they never bother putting a tape in the machine.
Yes, that is exactly the core vulnerability. And threat actors explicitly count on that behavior. They operate under the assumption that you aren't looking.
They know the camera's empty.
They absolutely know. And what the text points out, and this is a crucial distinction we really need to emphasize, is the illusion of compliance.
The illusion of compliance. Okay, say more about that.
So many organizations do technically collect logs, but they only do it to satisfy a compliance checklist or maybe an insurance requirement.
Ah, right. Just checking a box.
Exactly. The logs are being gathered, but no human being or automated system is actively reviewing them. They aren't using them to detect suspicious activity in real time. They're basically just hoarding unreadable data in a dark room so they can check that box on an auditor's form.
So the camera is technically recording, but the security guard in the basement is, fast asleep at the desk.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And then when the CEO comes down the next morning asking for footage of the break-in, it takes a week to find the right tape.
And by then, the damage is irreversible. When a crisis hits, say, an unknown vendor account suddenly logs in at 2:00 a.m., or a massive financial file is quietly deleted, those logs are the only mechanism you have to provide actual, verifiable answers. You need to establish a comprehensive narrative of the attack.
And the text outlines that narrative beautifully. It breaks down the 5 specific questions those digital cameras need to answer during an instant response.
Right, the 5 questions.
Yeah. So when you're sitting in that war room, you first need to establish the cast of characters and the timeline. You need to know who did it and when it happened.
Right. Was it Bob in accounting, or was it an external IP address from across the globe wearing Bob's digital credentials like a mask?
Like a mask. That's creepy. But yeah, exactly. And if it was an external IP, did this start last night? Or have they been, lurking in the system since last November?
Yeah, establishing that timeline is the absolute foundation. When
Yeah.
once you have the who and the when, you have to map the movement. You have to answer what systems were touched and what
Yeah.
changed.
What changed?
Did they just
Yeah.
access the email server and read messages,
Hmm.
or did they alter permissions? Like, did they create a new hidden administrator account, a back door, so they
Yeah.
could get back in later, even if you force everyone to reset their passwords?
Which brings up the fifth, and I think arguably the most terrifying question you have to answer for your stakeholders. How far into the network did they go?
The blast radius.
Yes. The source material uses the term blast radius. I think that's such a brilliant way to frame it. It's a term from explosives, but in IT, it means understanding the total area of destruction.
Exactly.
If an attacker gets into one laptop, is the blast radius contained to just that single machine? Or did the infection spread across the network, compromising the payroll servers, the backup drives, and, the entire client database?
And without logs, you literally cannot define that blast radius. You are just shrugging your shoulders while your business bleeds data.
Which is horrifying.
Oh, it is. That uncertainty is what kills a business's reputation faster than the actual breach itself. Because imagine having to call your clients and say, hey, we were hacked, but we have absolutely no idea what they took or how long they were in there.
Oh, man, yeah. It destroys trust instantly.
Instant.
But, okay, assuming that level of destruction is only reserved for massive corporations is a really dangerous mindset. I can hear a small business owner listening to us right now throwing their hands up and saying, look, I don't have a massive incident response team. I don't have a giant server farm humming in a basement. I run a graphic design agency. I just use Google Workspace and a couple of laptops. Does this really apply to me?
We need to dismantle that myth right now.
Please do.
Log management is absolutely not just for enterprise-level companies. Small and medium-sized businesses desperately need this visibility.
Really? Even just using Google Workspace?
Oh, especially then. In fact, because smaller businesses increasingly rely on shared, cloud-based, everyday tools, their risk surface is incredibly high. If you're using cloud apps, email, basic financial software, and giving your employees remote access, you are generating critical data. You are a target.
Wow. Okay, so let's break down the anatomy of an attack, because the text goes into a deep dive on the 8 specific categories of logs every single business generates.
Right, the 8 categories.
Yeah, and instead of just listing them, let's look at how an attacker actually moves through a network and how these logs act as tripwires. It always starts at the front door, right? The attacker tries to get in, which generates login and authentication logs.
Yeah, those are your absolute baseline. They show who signed in, when they signed in, and crucially, whether the attempt succeeded or failed.
Right.
Because if you see 1,000 failed logins at 3 a.m. from a foreign country, followed by one success, I mean, that is a glaring red flag that someone just kicked your digital front door off its hinges.
But getting in isn't enough, is it? Like, if they log in as a standard user, they can't do much damage.
Usually not.
They need the master keys. They need to trick the system into thinking they are the IT administrator so they can turn off the alarms and access everything. And that's where your administrative activity logs come in.
Exactly. If a standard user account suddenly grants itself global admin rights at 4 in the morning, you need a receipt for that privilege escalation.
Because once they have those elevated privileges, their next target is always your data. They head straight for the vault.
Yep, the good stuff.
And this is tracked by your file access logs and your email and cloud app logs. The file access logs show when sensitive intellectual property was, viewed, copied, or deleted.
And the cloud app logs, I mean, those are the lifeblood of modern works. Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, Dropbox.
Right.
If an attacker sets up a rule to silently forward all of the CEO's incoming emails to an external anonymous account, which happens all the time, these logs are the only way you will ever catch it.
Man, that's scary. But to understand the full picture, you also have to know how they navigated the physical and virtual space of your office. You have to monitor the perimeter with firewall and network logs. It's like the traffic camera on the highway outside your building, showing you what massive chunks of data are leaving your network. And inside the building, you have endpoint and device logs. This tracks the activity happening directly on the physical laptops and servers. Like, if an attacker executes a malicious script on a receptionist's computer, The endpoint log captures it.
We also have to consider the side doors, though. We live in a highly interconnected world. You probably have outside IT providers, accountants, or software vendors connecting to your systems.
Oh, right. Third parties.
Yeah, and vendor and remote access logs provide a vital record of when those third parties come into your environment and what exactly they touch.
Finally, you have the actual alarms themselves, right? Security alert logs. Your antivirus and endpoint protection tools are constantly detecting suspicious behavior. But if you aren't collecting and reviewing the alerts those tools generate, what is the point of even paying for them?
There's no point. There are just alarms ringing in an empty house. If no one is listening to the siren, the burglar just ignores it and keeps packing up your valuables.
Okay, so we have mapped out where all this data lives and how it acts as a tripwire. But let's ground this technical ecosystem in human reality. Let's look at what happens when you ignore this visibility, using a very specific real-world scenario from the text. Let's talk about the disgruntled employee.
Oh, yes. It is a classic and unfortunately incredibly common situation. So an employee leaves the company under highly toxic terms. Maybe they were fired, maybe they quit in a rage.
We've all seen it.
Right. A company remembers to take their physical key card to the building. But in the chaotic aftermath of the firing, their digital access, their VPN login, their cloud storage access, it just isn't fully revoked by the IT department.
So, fast forward a week, the former employee is sitting on their couch at home, opens their personal laptop, and logs right back into the company's internal network.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this exact moment is where the presence or absence of logs dictates your company's entire future. Because without logs, this event is entirely invisible. The employee could be browsing confidential client lists, reading sensitive internal communications, or methodically deleting project files.
And you wouldn't even know.
Exactly. You might eventually notice a folder is missing weeks later, but you will have absolutely no idea who took it, when they took it, or what else they looked at.
It's basically a ghost story. You are just haunted by missing data.
That's a great way to put it.
But
But with proper log management turned on, everything changes. You have an exact timestamp of the login from that external IP address. You know the exact systems they move through.
the receipts.
Yes, the receipts. You have a definitive, unalterable record of the specific data they viewed or downloaded before you finally realize the oversight and disable the account. It is the literal difference between guessing and knowing.
And what I love about exploring this specific example is that it completely reorients the conversation around why we track this data. Because I think a lot of employees hear the phrase log management and they instantly think, oh, great, Big Brother is watching me work. Management is tracking my keystrokes.
Yeah, totally.
But this scenario proves logging isn't about spying on employees. It's not about tracking how long someone spends reading a news site on their lunch break. It's about accountability. It's about investigation. And most importantly, it's about recovery. You cannot recover a system that you do not understand.
And that is a vital cultural shift for a company to make. Logs protect the innocent just as much as they catch the guilty. When something goes wrong, they provide an objective, mathematical truth that removes suspicion from the rest of the team.
Right, so nobody's pointing fingers at the innocent people, but that terrifying realization, the ghost in the machine of the disgruntled employee, it creates a really urgent need for a solution. We know what logs are, and we know the catastrophic consequences of ignoring them, so how do we actually set this up correctly?
Good question.
The source text lays out 5 basic rules for what good log management looks like, specifically tailored for small and medium businesses so they don't get completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, the first 2 rules are really foundational. Rule 1, know what needs tracking. You simply cannot protect what you don't know you have.
Makes sense.
You have to map out your critical systems, accounts, applications, and the specific data that would completely ruin your week if it disappeared or became public.
Okay, so that's rule 1.
Right. Rule 2, make sure the cameras are actually on. You would be shocked, honestly, shocked at how many enterprise software tools come with the logging features turned off by default.
Wait, really? Off by default?
Yes, usually just to save the vendor's storage space. You can never assume the factory settings have your security in mind. You have to manually verify that logging is enabled across your critical tools.
That's crazy. Okay, rule 3 is fascinating because it seems so basic, yet it is wildly important. Sync the clocks. I have to admit, this one really stuck with me.
huge.
Because it's like trying to solve a complex murder mystery. but all your key witnesses have their watches set to completely different time zones. Like if your email server thinks an event happened at 2:00 p.m., but your firewall recorded the related traffic at 2:05 p.m., your entire investigation timeline is totally ruined. You literally cannot prove that action A caused action B.
Yeah, it creates absolute chaos during an incident response. And the technical mechanism to solve this is ensuring Network Time Protocol, or NTP, is unified across all devices.
NTP, got it.
Right, NTP acts like a digital atomic clock for your entire network. It forces every single piece of hardware and software in your office to check in and agree on the exact millisecond. Because if the timestamps don't align perfectly, tracing the attacker's rapid automated movements becomes mathematically impossible.
That is such a crucial mechanical detail. Now let's look at rule 4. Send logs somewhere safe and central. Let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Wait, hold on. If I have a server, and that server is actively saving its own logs to its own hard drive, why am I setting up a completely separate system just to store them again? That feels like I'm paying for storage twice. Isn't a local copy enough?
It sounds redundant until you look at how modern attackers actually operate. When an attacker breaches a server, they run automated scripts. The very first command those scripts execute is to wipe the local event viewers.
Oh!
Yeah, they delete the local logs instantly to hide their tracks. It's exactly like a burglar stealing the tape out of the security camera on their way out the door.
Wow, okay.
So if you aren't sending those logs to a centralized off-site location in real time, your receipts burn with the billing. And this introduces the concept of immutability. You need a central server where data can be written, but never ever deleted or modified, even by an administrator.
Like the ultimate black box. You can put data in, but you can't scrub it out, which leads right into rule 5. Keep them long enough. If you are only retaining your logs for 3 or 4 days to save on cloud storage costs, you are setting yourself up for failure. Attacks are rarely discovered the moment they happen. The source text notes that it often takes weeks, sometimes months, for a business to realize there has been a breach.
Months, yes.
If your logs automatically overwrite themselves every 48 hours, the evidence is long gone by the time the investigators start looking for it.
Retention policies must match the reality of threat detection timelines. 3 months of active searchable retention is usually the absolute minimum baseline you should aim for.
3 months. Okay, so those are the 5 rules. Know what to track, turn the cameras on, sync the clocks with NTP, store them centrally and immutably, and retain them long enough. In theory, that makes total sense.
It does.
But I know that a listener right now might still feel overwhelmed. It's one thing to understand the mechanics. It's a whole other beast to build this architecture while trying to run a graphic design agency or a dental practice. Where is the actual roadmap?
And that gap between theory and execution, that's the major hurdle for most businesses. They understand the why, but the how just feels buried in impenetrable technical jargon and, frankly, expensive consulting fees.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The source text provides a direct, highly practical resource to bridge that exact gap.
Okay.
It highlights a book by Jamal Goddard called The Practical Cybersecurity Program, a plain English guide for small and medium-sized businesses. What makes this recommendation so compelling is how specifically it addresses the exact pain points we have been unpacking today.
Yeah, it's an exceptional resource because it intentionally abandons the complex jargon. Small business owners do not have the time to get a master's degree in computer science. They need actionable, structured steps.
Exactly. The book lays out a realistic 90-day improvement plan. It doesn't tell you to overhaul your entire infrastructure overnight, which is a relief. It gives you downloadable worksheets, templates you can actually use to map out your systems and identify your critical data. And this is big. It even helps prepare you for cyber insurance readiness questionnaires.
Oh, those are a nightmare.
Let's be honest, those insurance forms are becoming a massive headache for any business trying to get coverage right now. The book moves you from abstract theory to tangible action.
And beyond the written text, it's really worth noting that educating yourself on cybersecurity doesn't have to be a dry, exhausting experience. The source material highlights the broader CyberOps source content ecosystem, specifically pointing out their channels on YouTube and TikTok.
Yes. They have these incredible bite-sized shows. The text specifically mentions titles like The Overconfident Boss, Help Desk Chronicles, Cyber Files, and they're really quick cyber minutes.
What makes those shows brilliant is their pedagogical approach. They mix highly practical, actionable cybersecurity education with genuine humor.
They're actually funny.
They are. They understand that if you make the material relatable and entertaining, the concepts actually stick. It breaks down the intimidation factor. Cybersecurity is ultimately a human problem, and approaching it with a bit of humor makes the medicine go down so much easier for the average user.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We have explored the analog of the security cameras, the absolute necessity of atomic clocks, the ghost story of the disgruntled employee, and the resources available to help you build your defenses. But if we had to distill the ultimate value proposition of CIS Control 8 down to one core idea, it's about shifting your mindset.
A complete paradigm shift.
Yes, you have to move from a prevention-only strategy to demanding absolute visibility. There is a definitive quote from the text that perfectly encapsulates this entire deep dive. It says, "Backups help you recover your files. Logs help you recover the truth."
What's fascinating here is how perfectly that aligns with the CyberOps motto, secure today, resilient tomorrow. Security represents the walls you build and the prevention methods you deploy. But resilience is your ability to take a punch, bounce back, understand exactly what happened, and recover the truth using those unalterable audit logs. You simply cannot have true organizational resilience without keeping your digital receipts.
You absolutely cannot. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought.
Ooh, all right.
We have spent this entire conversation establishing that audit logs are the ultimate source of truth. They are the undeniable mathematical receipts of what happened on your network. But technology never stands still. What happens when attackers start using artificial intelligence to write fake, perfectly normal-looking log entries to cover their tracks?
Wow.
Right. If an AI can generate a flawless, perfectly synchronized, digitally signed history of events that never actually happened, effectively placing a looping video in front of our security cameras so we think the hallway is empty, how do we respond? If we rely purely on the logs to tell us the truth, how do we verify the truth of the logs themselves?
That arms race is rapidly becoming the next great frontier of cybersecurity.
It really is something to keep you up at night, right next to those humming servers. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep checking your receipts, and we will see you next time.